Welcome to another episode of the Rainmaker Family Show. Today, our guest is Mindy Linscomb, and she owns and operates one of the largest bridal stores in America. And she is the host of the Something New show on all the platforms that you can think of. And she's been running a business for over 14 years as a mom. And I think it's just incredible to hear from women who are high-level CEOs that have been in business for a long time, but also had a family. And she has this beautiful mix of being able to be with her kids and be fully present and also put on her CEO hat and not feel guilt and shame that I think so many moms experience. So we jump right into it from the very beginning from our interview, but it's going to be such a fun conversation.
Okay, so as a mom, it's been really, a unique dream to have the dream to both be an entrepreneur and raise children. And most people think that they exist separately and there's no way to coexist. And I think that, we were created very capable to do both of those things. However, it isn't easy by any means. And it took a lot of years of struggle to figure out a good routine for me and my husband and our company and how we would kind of adapt to a working mom scenario. Because again, I don't think a lot of people model it. I don't think you have a lot of examples. I have people reaching out to me all the time saying, how do you do this? Like, I don't know anyone that knows how to be a working mom. And I can see that you're doing it and your kids love you and you have a good relationship with your husband. And I'm like, yeah, it's not easy, but there's some really good hacks that I recommend along the way. So just to begin, I think it's important to have a clear perspective of what your calling is, whether you're called to just be a mom or also be a working mom. And if you feel like you're called to do both, then I think you need to get into a rested place, whether that's stepping away for a day or, having an overnight. And what you need to do is get some good clarity on how much time you feel like is fair to dedicate to your children and how much time you think is fair to dedicate to your work. And you need to do this in a rested state. When we're overtired and we're emotional and we're failing in a lot of our areas, sometimes this is the worst time to make a big decision. I tell people all the time, don't make any big decisions when you're tired. So I asked for 24 hours away, and I usually do this like once a semester. So like right before school starts, and then again before second semester, and right before summer. And so, okay, what is the flow that I feel like is an appropriate amount of time to invest in each of these areas? And I don't want to like fail either people in my life. So I decide how much time. Then I decide when's the appropriate amount of time to spend those times. So do I want to spend that time when they're at school or let Jordan am I going to work while they're in school? Or, a lot of times we did shifts where we would try to eliminate a ton of babysitting, because that was another thing we had to decide is like, do we want to raise our kids or do we trust other people to raise them? So when you decide the amount of time you want to work, you have to decide when you're going to work so that you match your commitment to raising your children with actually how it looks on the calendar. Then in the minuscule, what it looks like, and this is an operational thing that we do every week, my husband and I on Sunday nights, we pull out our calendars and we make sure that we allocate the right amount of time that we said is fair for our work and the right amount of time for parenting to the week. And we sign up for when we're going to do certain things through the week. And I count the hours. I literally count them. I highlight all my work hours in one color and I'm like, okay, is this the right amount of hours? I count the hours. I'm going to have eyeball time with my kids and I count it. I literally call it eyeball time because I'm going to be looking at them in their eyes. They're not just sitting next to me at work, because that's very different. I have a lot of years of my kids sitting in my office with no connection and they're just playing on something, right? So I call it eyeball time. How many hours of eyeball time am I giving them? And then I want to make sure it matches that commitment I made when I stepped away and I was refreshed and I said, this is what's fair. Now, when you're in the moment, you don't always feel like doing the work or feel like doing the mom thing, because you feel like you should be, oh, I should be at work right now. They have a lot of projects going on, but you committed to be with your kids right now. Or vice versa. You're at home with your kids and you feel like, I'm just saying you feel torn. But what I know is in those moments, I'm really tired and I'm feeling emotional simply because I'm tired. So what I decided to do, and I had a coach teach me to do this, is to completely be committed to whatever I had put on the calendar Sunday night when I was very present about my decisions. So when I'm at work, I literally put everything away and I go all in with the project and the people that I serve. And then when I go home, I turn it off. And I literally, if it's just a 2-hour block that I committed for eyeball time, it's like, it's all the way there. So then I stopped feeling so much guilt, because I feel like guilt is one of the strongest human emotions. And especially as moms, it weighs us down and it makes us incapable of doing anything. So I just tell people, I'm like, make sure that your schedule matches your goals and your commitment that you've made to your people. And if it does match and it's appropriately allocated, then when you're in those moments, you don't feel guilty anymore, because you're like, this is the right amount of time. I said, I value friendships, because that's something moms never put on their calendar, is friendship time with their friends. So if you've committed 1 hour a month to friendship time, when you go to that wine night or you go to whatever that is, you be all the way there, because you know you said 1 hour a month, I have to do this in order to build friendship. So I would just say be all the way there, but make those decisions from a place of rest and clarity and prayer, and also in unity with your spouse. Like we always, Sunday night, like I said, we make sure we're back on the same page for the week as far as how much unity we have on how that's going to work. I mean, it's even to the minuscule of like, my husband will be like, so when are you working out? And I love it, because I'm like, oh yeah, somebody's asking me when I'm working out this week. Okay. So I'm like, yeah, that's when I'm going to work out. And we put it on the calendar. That's when I'm going to work out. That's when he's going to work out. And we allocate the week. It's like having a budget for your money. We feel like in life, we have a budget of time that God has given us as a very, a resource that is running out, right? Our time on earth is constantly, you never know when it's going to be gone. So we say it's a resource just like money. And we use that time and we tell the time where it's going to go. And we literally, I'll go all the way there wherever we decided the time needs to go.
Wow.
I'm
That's
just
so
like,
amazing.
I'm like, oh, we do a good job of some of these things. And then others, I'm like, no, we need to be more strict about. And I think moms feel this tension, this imbalance when we're at work thinking about the kids and we're with the kids thinking about work. And I found more and more as being a mom now, 4 years in, essentially, like that the structure, there's freedom in the structure. Like I keep going back to that, and like the structure of calendaring things and putting it on the docket and communicating when that's going to happen. I think that's brought me like so much freedom.
Yeah.
And then I just want to, something that you made me think of too, that we're very intentional about, that helped with the guilt, is we started to pinpoint people that we knew that would be more like a mentor to our kids.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, ooh, we want our kids to be like them. Like they are so incredible. And we would approach them. So I never have posted a listing for a childcare or a house manager or anything, even though I've had all those people. I find the people that I'm like in the universe that are so amazing. And I'm like, how much would you charge to reconsider working for me? And here's why. I really want you around my kids, and you would be such a great influence on them, and etc. And then what's so incredible, this is what's so freeing with the guilt thing, is when I leave my house to come to work and I know they're with them, I'm like, well, if they can't be with me, that is the best person for them to be with.
Wow.
And they're going to probably be amazing when I come home tonight, because they'll learn this, and this from that person. And then I feel so great going to work because I know they're in better care than I could imagine. So I think just looking at it from a standpoint of like, am I just hiring childcare? Am I just like dropping them off because this is the only option? Now, I would say family is usually the best option, right? Because they care about your kids the most. But that's not always true for everyone. And so if it's not true for everyone, find someone that you can find. And it's worth the extra couple dollars an hour. It is so worth it, because I'm like, this is someone investing into my kids. It's not just a babysitter that puts them in front of a TV. I can do that at my office. So I want somebody that's like really mentoring them. And then like the guilt started to go away, because I was like, okay, this is the time I felt good about committing. I'm still spending very present time with them when I'm there. They know mom's schedule, and it's accommodating. I mean, you guys, we really do as much as possible around their schedule, so that we've prioritized, just for everybody listening to know that picking up and dropping off your kids from school is only mom or dad. And I had someone give a whole reason why, and I'll give you a short version, is there's very crucial conversations that happen on the way, and on the way to school, and on the way home from school. So it's like, those are the 2 hours that I don't block meetings. And if I have to go do a few more things, I will, but I want to be in the car to hear what happened today, because there's like this little fuse that stops when you get home. They get moving on to the other things, or their after school like their activities, and you miss what happened in their life. And I'm like, okay, yes, I will commit to that. And it's been a sacrifice to make sure we are always the one dropping off and picking up, but it's been so worth it. I've heard so many sidebar conversations that I would have never heard before. And again, it's that commitment to the week where I'm like, I'm very present. I know what's going on in my kids' lives, and I do have a great relationship with them. And I'm like, that's pretty remarkable, considering I've worked, a ton of hours for 16 years. So we have 4 kids, 13, 11, 8, and 6. And so I've been doing the gig for a while and I still feel close to them. And I'm very thankful for the freedom I have of not living in what I did in the first 5 years, which is just excruciating guilt, pain, almost like debilitating. Like I couldn't even make decisions at work because I felt so guilty that I was there. So I'm just saying, I've been there with the moms that are trying to figure this out. And I say, you make decisions in clarity with your time, you allocate the week accordingly, and then get support for your childcare that is somebody that is like a mentor for your kids.
That's amazing. Mindy, I would love to know what that moment for you where you're like, this has to change. Because you just talked about like the first 5 years where my kids would just come to work with me and I wasn't giving them, you said eyeball time. And I love that. Like what happened that made you were like, I've got to change? And what did you do to make it where it is now?
Okay. Well, it was a fight with my husband. Okay, no, but we both work, and this was before he worked with our company full time, until just last year. He had a full-time job that he loved and felt called to, and so he didn't want to quit his job. But this was 5 years into having a business and having kids. Okay, so we had one baby at the time, just one, and I remember distinctly where I was sitting. I was sitting in my bed, and he was sitting next to me. We were both on our laptops, kind of planning the next day. We just got the 1-year-old to bed or whatever, and the babysitter texted and canceled. Has anyone been there? Has anyone been there where the babysitter cancels for tomorrow? And you're like, oh my gosh. And I look at him, I like turn my head, I was like, you're gonna have to watch Bear tomorrow. And he's like, oh no. He's like, you gotta do it. And I was like, what? I was like, I cannot. I have this, and this. I don't know if it was like a photo shoot or something. Like it was something I definitely could not bring my son to. And he had meetings that his boss had scheduled. He could not miss. And we're like, well, who's going to be the one that sucks at work tomorrow, basically? But no, we were just kind of like going at it. And I was like, something has to change. Either I quit, you quit, or we figure this out. And like a third alternative. And in that season, we did not have a family member living near us. We didn't have any people like that. And we didn't have someone that was available to like be as dependable. So we went the route, and this is a crazy route for some people, but it was perfect for us. We got an au pair that year. And we just did it for a year to overcome some of these both working tension things that we're having. And in the year that I had an au pair, which is a really great option for people who have little babies at home that aren't in school yet and need the flexibility of work hours. Okay. That was a super big gift to our family. And that was the year that I got clarity that, one, I am supposed to work. Because I think that's something that moms don't know for sure in the time where they're still trying to figure out if this is going to be successful or not, And I'm like, no, this is successful. It's bringing in our family some really great second income. And if it eventually flipped to where it was the main income and not the second income. And I was like, I love what I do. I don't feel like I went to college all these years and developed leadership programs to just be a mom, even though that's not a bad idea. It's just, for me, I felt called to other things. And so I had clarity the year that I had the au pair because I had moments to rest. And when I had those moments to rest, I decided, yes, I am called to this. So we made a commitment as a husband and wife to say, we will make a very much more serious schedule plan of childcare so that you don't feel guilty going to work. Because I was burning the candle at both ends before we had the au pair. I was put the baby to bed and I'd work until 2 or 3 in the morning, get up at 6 with the baby and keep on going. And this is not sustainable for people listening. It's like and my husband and I, we were like ships in the night. I mean, we were passing each other. Oh, you're up. It's almost like you're up, I'm out. You're up, I'm out. And we were just passing like this. And we knew that wouldn't work. So that year of having an au pair, seriously was a gift to us. We decided that was not the right fit long term, but it was what we needed for a year to really sleep, get clarity, and rest. Because then you decide, I am supposed to work. Okay, then we got to figure this out.
That's awesome. Yeah. I would love to transition gears just a little bit into talking about like business specifically. So Mindy does so many different things. She's absolutely incredible. She owns one of like the largest bridal shops in America, and it's beautiful. I haven't been there in person yet, but I really want to go.
I'm here today.
She's here today.
Yeah.
If you see it on to in her beautiful shop, and and your business, like, I feel like at a time, especially during like COVID and everything, with like what we were in the wedding industry, so we understand like the ebbs and flows of that. Like your business like made it, and you have this whole coaching thing where you coach people alongside of that too. But I would love to like for you to share a little bit about like, you talk so well and you coach on like making first impressions with people. And so can you just share a little bit like how you can do that as a business owner, either online or in person?
I love that. I do think first impressions matter so much. Whenever a customer reaches out to you, you don't know which way they're going to reach out. You don't know if it's going to be digitally or over the phone. I would say most of the time these days, it's a DM, it's a little message on Facebook, it used to be emails, not so much anymore. But I do greet them that way first. And so I think it's important that you do try to think of the voice in your words. So it's like, what's your brand vibe? Like our bride or our customer is celebratory. So we're not just going to say hi. We're going to be like, hi, exclamation point, exclamation point. We're also going to use their name. So we won't just say hi like that. We'll be like, hi, Mindy, exclamation point. Congratulations. We lead with celebration. Congratulations on your special event coming up. We don't even know what it is. I mean, it could be whatever. So, but think about what people would be contacting you for and then celebrate that. So if they're contacting you for a hair product, or if they're contacting you for whatever it might be, celebrate and like acknowledge that leading comment. It's like, hi, so-and-so, how awesome that you're reaching out about this. You must have a special event coming up, or you know what I'm saying? Like kind of acknowledge why they reached out before you start to talk to them. And then my favorite is over the phone versus DM. But DM, we talk to them. We even can do voice memo on DMs sometimes. If we're like, oh, this will make a really special splash for them, we'll do a voice memo on DMs. But on the phone, same thing. I've done a ton of phone trainings where I tell people, when you smile, people can actually hear the difference in your voice, even if they can't see you. And so it's like they've done research on this, that when somebody answers the phone, if you're not smiling, they can feel it. So I'm always like, make sure you're smiling when you answer the phone. And the girls are like, okay, they think it's so crazy, but I'm like, no, I promise it works. And so same thing, we ask their name and then we use their name 3 times within the first minute of talking to them. So it's like, thank you for calling something new today. This is Mindy. How can I help you? Or what are you celebrating? And then you would say Chelsea. And I'm like, oh, hey, Chelsea, nice to meet you. You'd say, I'm Chelsea. I'm looking for a dress, or whatever it might be. That's awesome. So Chelsea, tell me when you got engaged. That's incredible. I'm so excited about that. So now you're looking for a dress and you want to come in sometime. Okay. So Chelsea, who would you be bringing with you? Who is so special in your life that you want to make sure they're there that day? So I keep using it within that first minute, and it really does make a difference. Now let's hop over to in person. When I meet somebody in person, I have a really important thing that I teach all of my team members. When you greet someone, you want to first of all welcome them, because a lot of people don't even acknowledge you when you walk into any retail these days. They hardly look up. So you're already going to stand out by saying, welcome to whatever place you are. I'm so glad you came. So I love that I'm so glad. It just sets people at ease. So we say, I'm so glad you came. I'm so glad you brought home so-and-so. I'm so glad, however they can tie it in. And then what I'm looking for while I'm starting to just chit chat about why they came in, I'm looking for something within the first, now I'm giving you 2 minutes for this task. First minute is your name 3 times, but now I'm going to give you 2 minutes to have a me too moment, is what I call it. And this is the moment where I have something in common with you, and you will instantly feel like we're friends instead of feeling like I'm a salesperson, because I don't want to be a salesperson. I don't see myself as a salesperson, even though people say you're an expert at sales. I'm like, no, I help people find what they need. That's what I do. And so I'm saying, if you need something and I have it, I can help you. And that's how I truly feel. I don't feel like I'm selling them, but I do want to set them at ease as a friend immediately and say something. I can say me too. And the girls are like, okay, so like, give me an example. I said, well, let's say they have a Chicago Cubs t-shirt on, and I'm originally from Chicago, and be like, oh, are you a Cubs fan? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, me too. And it's like a very unique thing to be in Colorado and be a Cubs fan, because we just ran into each other. Some other examples might be, a girl that worked for me would say, oh yeah, we totally had a me too moment. I'm like, what was it? She's like, we both like the ocean. I said, that doesn't work, because if I asked everybody here if they like the ocean, that's going to be a yes. So it has to be unique to you and them. And I promise you, immediately it just knocks the wall down between their trust with you and the new customer that you just met, and you are looking for the fastest, strongest me too as possible.
That's powerful, Mindy. Like, we teach moms mostly how to do online businesses, and I'm just like translating this in my head for them, because there's so much customer communication and language that goes into like branding. And like, I think when sometimes people think of branding, they think of like my logo, right? But like branding is so much more. It's the language that you use. It's how you speak. It's these things that you can integrate in that create that experience. Because a brand really that is memorable is one that people have a moment with, right? And so I love like this, like really I feel like you're an expert on branding, and really like how do you make an impression on someone that sticks. So where did that like when you started, like when you look back on your history of this business, I think you said 16 years you've been doing it.
Yes.
How has the brand changed like since then to now?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because it's been a journey, right? I mean, when I started, I definitely wasn't an expert in anything. I was 27 years old and just like very excited and almost unaware of how many challenges I would face as an entrepreneur. And I think sometimes that whole not knowing is bliss.
Yeah.
Because, I was just like, because it would just come one thing at a time as a problem. So it wasn't like if I were to look back and know all that I'd have to go through, I don't know if I would choose this path again. Right. But in the moment of 27, going like, yeah, I could totally do this. I could figure this out. Those were the days where I was like, I'm just going to figure it out one thing at a time. And I want to encourage those people that are kind of like, well, how do you get to that point where you know your brand? Well, guess what? It was just little by little. So what happened was when I first started, I still remember my font, the style of my store, everything was totally different. It was like, there wasn't, just to clarify for people too, there wasn't Facebook for businesses.
Yeah.
It had just started like 2 years before that. And it was a place to put your photo albums.
Okay,
So the only place to advertise when I started in 2007 was a yellow page ad and bridal shows in person.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm like, whoa, has the game changed? Right. And so I have to be very nimble. And I just want to encourage everybody to be very nimble, because as you think, oh my gosh, it's crazy to think about that as an advertising mechanism. Like as we talk like about, this last year, I've been really hearing a lot about AI and the metaverse and people buying real estate in the metaverse and doing transactions like they're going out to coffee in their virtual reality goggles. I'm like, I can't even imagine that. But if you were to ask me 17 years ago if I could imagine what I'm doing now on virtual, like that's what I'm saying. Like we have to be nimble. We have to not be closed-minded about the future. We have to be more open to it. But back to your question with my branding, what I realized was I would take care of a customer in a certain way. And it's almost like a practice. It's like a runway where you're like, okay, that worked and that took off. And other things language I would try did not. Brides responded to this. They didn't respond to this. And I keep trying. And it was like, fail. Oh, that worked. Fail. Oh, that worked. And as I found things that worked, I would start to write down key phrases about who we are as a company and what we say and how we word our contract and what are things that make brides feel better about their body image and what are things that we can do to include the mom and what are the things. And so we just really started to pay attention. And then in about year 8, which is, I feel like kind of late to do this, but it was when we could afford it. We hired a very amazing branding company that they're not a local logo design company, even though they do that at the end. What they do is they kind of reverse and engineer it. They come and study you. So for 6 months, they studied us and they spent time in my business. They listened to staff meetings. They did one-on-ones with my employees to find out what it was like working for me. Talk about vulnerable. It was crazy. Yeah. And so they did this whole thing and they realized like, okay, all of your branding and your colors and everything don't match who you are. And then they came down to like 4 main words of who we are as a company, like our 4 main pillars of like, the type of people we hire and attract and customers that shop here. And it was really, really crazy. And after we came up with like our tweaked mission statement and then our core values and like who we stand for and who we are, then we could use those to line up with anybody we ever hire to say, are these are these people these things? And so we constantly kind of stayed in the lane more about only hiring strategically people that were those people. And then what was awesome at the end of the whole project, after, like I said, them studying us, then they said, these are the colors that evoke the emotion that your company gives to customers as they come through your door. So then we chose a color palette, and then at the end, they chose font and logo and branding based on the emotion that it gives. So we went from like a scripty, squirrely font to like a block font that's a little bit more bold, because we're like here to help you. Like, we are not messing around. And it's so crazy because now you can start to see that was about 5 years ago, and I was the only one in the bridal industry in the world using a block font. And now major labels have copied me and used this font, and it's hilarious because it's like, wow, like what we're doing is working. We're kind of a ripple effect, but you have to stay really attentive in the early days. Like the first couple of years, you got to stay really attentive. When something works well with customers, you need to write that down. And when it's not working and it didn't land well, you get rid of it. That's not me. That's not going to be what we do. And stay focused on those attention.
I love hearing about like these early days of the business, because I think I would say like we got people in all spectrums, from like just starting and even just thinking about starting to 7-figure, 8-figure people that probably listen to this show, right? And so but I do think more of them are in the just starting or 0 to probably 100,000 kind of range. And I know with e-commerce, like selling physical products, there can be definitely a learning curve to like inventory management and like how much do you buy, and like, oh my gosh, I bought too much, right? Like, so I would love to hear your wisdom on that, because now you guys are at the level where you are really at a higher volume. You probably have some of those things a lot more seasoned, but in those early days, like you've talked about some forms of leverage that I think are higher forms of leverage. You talked about rest, you've talked about time leverage. But I want to talk about financial leverage a little bit. And we talked about this before the show, just because a lot of our people are considering that, like, how do I, grow a business, that's an inventory business. I got to buy inventory, I got to buy products, and then it starts to grow and I got to buy more, right? And you're making money, but now you got to buy more inventory, right? So talk us through that a little bit in those early stages of using leverage in the business when it comes to financial leverage.
Yes. Well, I mean, you knew how much you had to spend, right? Like you had at least hopefully a budget. Like even in my early years, I was like, okay, I have maybe $20,000 to buy inventory with. And that was my first year. So that's really tricky because you go to market or you go to wherever you're going, and all these places usually have minimums. And so then you're like, but I want this from over there and this from over there. And you can't really cherry pick. You literally have to buy deep within certain brands. You don't get to just kind of one-off buy. Like in all of retail, my understanding in all of retail, because I've done all the regular stuff too, is like you have minimums with all these brands that you curate your collection with, whether that's an online collection or in your store. And so you have to be very mindful of a couple of things. One is there enough in this collection or this brand that I can sell? Because if it's just I'm only buying this deep for one thing, you can probably source it somewhere else. Right. The second thing is, so once you decide, oh, there's enough in this collection that I can really sell, what's my margin going to be? Like that is one of the things that most buyers don't concentrate too much on, is their margin. And, it's different in different industries, whether you're selling clothing or you're selling bridal or you're selling, actual, I don't know, cups or whatever it might be. So you have to know what's the margin that I need to operate. And if your products don't sell at that margin, then you don't have a business. Like my husband always says, he's like, you make your money when you buy, not when you sell, because this is where you have to be so strategic with what you're buying. We ask ourselves all the time, like, okay, can we do an X times markup? And then when it goes on sale, are we still okay? And so we're doing that type of intensity. So we're looking, okay, is there enough in the collection that we can sell everything that we buy here, not just one or two cute things? But then is the margin going to be okay? Or are we going to take a loss on it if we don't sell through it? And then what you're going to do is you're going to take really good, again, paying attention to your customers, you're going to take good reporting. And can be like an Excel. I mean, I literally only had QuickBooks when I started. I had nothing fancy. I would do a hand scheduler, like in a paper planner for all my appointments. And then I would even keep a little ledger as far as what products we were selling multiple of. And so it was like, okay, not what do I like, but what do the customers buy? And I've had to teach all of my leadership team in the more recent years, like to think like that when we go to market. And, Jordan always says right before we get in the car to drive off, he's like, you make your money when you buy, not when you sell, because to keep us all like, all the ladies on track here. But the reality is it's really cool. Now they use their spreadsheet to buy instead of using their heart of like, oh, I want like 10 of these. And I'm like, you do, but let's go back to the last 6 month data and see what customers have been buying. And so we pay attention. Now, if you don't have any data, yes, the first year is a little point and shoot, right? It's a little bit like, well, I'm going to buy what I like. I'm going to see what sells. And you have to keep really good track of what people are buying, like from not just like the product itself, but colors, sizes, all the different variables within that product. And then we literally go to market with our budget and we buy based on what the customers told us they liked. We also do that with ads. Whenever we do, which we do, all of our ads are online. We go, okay, let's go to my regular Instagram feed. Okay. Just like my regular posts that I'm doing. And whatever in my regular posts over the last 3 months, whatever girls really commented on or liked or got engaged with, I'm like, that's going to be my paid ad. Like, it's so easy. They already told me what they engaged with. We don't have to be so ridiculously creative when it comes time to buy or to create ads or to whatever it may be. You use your customers' decisions that interacted with your business to make your decision for what's next. So I'm going to buy what they tell me they like. I'm going to advertise what they tell me they like to see. I mean, all of it is so helpful in deciding what your next 6 months are going to be. And just try to take it 6 months at a time. You know what I mean? Like, I am like, don't overwhelm yourself. Just say, okay, what is the forecast for the next 6 months? What do we predict our sales to be? And then you buy accordingly to what your predicted sales are going to be. But I used to be so stupid. I mean, I'm being honest with you guys. Like at the beginning, I just bought what my designer reps told me to buy. They are like, you need to buy this. You should buy this. Have you ever thought about this? I'm like, sure. And I just write it up because that's what I thought that you were supposed to do. But then I learned they're not the expert. I am. I'm in my store every day. My girls are the ones selling the product, not some random Joe guy that lives on the other side of the country telling me what I should buy as a designer rep. Like, I'm going to buy what we need. So we got really good systems in place. And I think it hand in hand with also projecting your sales, because you are going to buy more than you want all the time, because we love to shop, right? You'll always want to buy more. But when you have a really good estimate of, what your projected sales are going to be based on other numbers that you're tracking, like let's say inquiries, what your closing rate is, what their average transaction size is, you can start to estimate pretty down to the wire of like what we're going to need to buy. And then you just make those decisions. And like I said, just do 6 months at a time so you're not overwhelmed.
That's so cool. Like we do it's so fun to see the parallels because, a lot of our people have no data. They have no history, no data. So we go to existing data. It's like, let's look at the Amazon reviews to see what people like, right? Yeah. Let's go to Target and sort by bestsellers and just see what the bestsellers are in this category. Like, we're not copying those things, but we're getting ideas from like what the market is telling us. That's one way you can like reduce risk when you're buying inventory, right? Is like, don't just buy off what you think you like. And we do sometimes exactly. Like our community, people are like, do you like A or B? And they're just asking like our small community group. I'm like, go look at way more data than just like these 50 people in the room who are going to see this post, right? And we've done that. We launched a product too. I was like it was like an invention. It was a brand new thing one time. And I was like, this is going to be it because I love it, and just kind of learned the hard way that like, the more you can reduce, the more you can look at the data, the more you're reducing risk, right? And it might even have to be your data. It can be someone else's data or data that's freely available on the internet. So that's an amazing tip, Mindy.
Yeah, well, and I just thought of one more thing talking about profit margin is like, there's so many things too that you can do private label. So like, that's one thing that, I know there's some items that you want to have the Stanley cup. You don't want to have a knockoff Stanley. It's like, oh no, you got to have the name brand. But there are so many cool products out there that I feel like there's a private label version of it that's pretty similar quality, and maybe you might be able to get a better margin.
Totally.
That's good. Mindy, I would love to know, even like early days of buying this inventory, going to market. I know you were just at market, and that's like, I saw Mindy's Instagram stories where she was taking her team. They were so cute, all dressed in pink, and they literally go and see all the dresses, and it looks like this mall with like a million like level
Floors.
a million floors, and I'm just like, I would be in heaven. I just want to spend my own money there. But I know like you come in with a budget and you have all that ready to spend, but also like, what were the early days like then of, I mean, maybe you had like cash to purchase, but like, what was your conversation around like credit or like good debt versus bad debt? And how did you kind of overcome some of those objections, especially as your store has grown? You have this beautiful store with tons and tons of dresses, knowing that like you're going to buy in faith that they're going to sell, and just that kind of relationship with borrowing and all of that.
Oh, that's a great question. So, yeah, in the beginning, I would say, you don't have as much credit because you don't have a history of sales. So it is a little bit more cash, or within 30 days of receiving the merchandise, you have to pay. So that gives you a little time from the day you order. You can work on those terms very easily. I think anybody could do that term, pay within 30 days of receiving the product. Okay. But what we also did was we've played all the things you can imagine when it comes to credit cards and line of credits. Like, and the line of credit doesn't have to be for your business. It can be just personal line of credit that you have against your house or any other asset that you might own. And that's a really, I feel like, safe way to begin if you have a plan on how the money is going to be spent. But we definitely had to leverage debt to get ahead. I mean, we're leveraging debt right now. We put money on an Airbnb, and I am totally overhauling, completely gutting it with debt, with like, I'm borrowing that money, right? But I have a whole business plan that in 12 months, that's going to be fine. It's going to be great because it'll actually generate more income once it's finished in a proper way. It was like really not cute, but now it's going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
But when I had these credit cards and lines of credit and everything, what my husband and I have really felt like we've landed on is that the credit cards have the highest interest rates. So you never want to pay for your merchandise with a credit card longer than 30 days. So what we would do is we would have our line of credit that has a low interest rate. Usually it's at your local bank and it's super great. We would put our inventory buying on the credit card, and then we would, within 30 days, so we get all the airline points and everything else. Within 30 days, if we didn't have the sales yet to pay it off within 30 days, we would never let it go over 30 on a credit card because we didn't want to pay that interest. My husband's like a drill sergeant when it comes to like not paying credit card interest. He is like, he won't do it, Yeah. But yet we have thousands and hundreds of thousands of miles from all of our purchasing. So what he does is, if we don't have the cash at that moment to pay for the credit card, then we'll take from the line of credit the lower interest money, pay off that, and then we just owe our line of credit. So that's kind of how you can play the game at the beginning. And I mean, still, even when you have cash, it's still not a bad idea to pay on a credit card so you can earn points. But as long as you commit to paying that before you have an interest payment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Good.
That's great advice. Talk to us a little bit about working with your spouse, with Jordan. Like, you guys, I mean, he was in a separate business. This last season, he's transitioned to working with you. And how has that transition been? But also, like, I don't know, what have you guys found are your superpowers in working together? Like, what's his strengths? What are your strengths? And how does that work really moving, I don't know, the same ship forward now?
Yeah, no, it's been, first of all, we were best friends before we dated and before we got married. So we just enjoy each other. Like, we just have a good time. And if anybody's not married, I would say do life where you're just doing the thing that you love. And then you look over and who's there with you? Who is the person doing that thing? That's somebody you need to consider marrying. That's what I'm telling my kids. I'm like, go after your dreams. And then at one point you're going to look to your side and you're going to be like, oh, they're there too. So that's kind of how we fell in love. We were best friends and then fell in love. But I would say, just to give him fair credit, for the last 16 years, he has absolutely still worked in the business, even though he also had a full-time job. So I think a lot of people here are doing that, probably trying to do the both and. And the reason why we did that is, one, he was, at the beginning, he was our only income. Okay. So we were living very scrappy. I was teaching piano lessons on the side. I mean, we were doing whatever we could. And he was also our insurance. So we didn't want him to step away, because when you own a family business, like, you have to kind of get your own insurance. So he did that for a very long time. Now, we did have a point where he could have stepped away sooner, but he enjoyed what he did. So that he worked for a nonprofit and felt really passionate about the mission. But then we realized, well, what if we just donate and serve with the nonprofit, and then we have your 40 hours back?
Yeah.
So it's just been cool, because that was, like you said, recently. So he was probably doing 20 hours a week on the back end already all this time. And then now he's able to dedicate his full commitment to it. But our superpower strengths are very different. And usually I would say opposites attract. Like, I have very rarely met the same, like, both spouses are similar. It's been rare. I can't think of a couple right now. Most of my friends, it's like the opposites attract. So use that to your advantage if you work together, because to me, instead of fighting it, I'm like, let's lean into this. Jordan, he is very administrative. He's a 3 on the Enneagram. He likes to get stuff done, but like in a level of thoroughness and excellence that I'm not accustomed to. I am a like, I have an idea. Let's roll it out. Even if it's an 8 out of a 10, we got to try it today. I don't want to wait. Let's go. And so I would say he is a really good balance for me, because that dude pays all of our taxes. He does all of our investing. He does and it's like to a T accurate. And I'm like, we'll figure it out. And that would not work for a business owner, but I am the person that is, I have a lot of experience in leadership development and building people up and finding, like, seeing something in them and bringing it out, and team culture. I would say team culture is probably one of the things that people come to me from all types of businesses, not just bridal, but they go, how do you run a company of 30 plus females? And everybody has such a positive work environment and they feel encouraged. And I'm like, well, it's intentionality. We have a lot of things that make that culture what it is. But I would say I'm more the training and team culture, and he's more, let's make sure everything's accurate and we don't miss a step. So it's a really good compliment.
Yeah. I think that's like Steve and I, we started super young working together. We got married. I think I was 21, you were 23. Yeah. And we started in our wedding business, and, having a very immature like relationship in high school and then getting married. And I think I focused a lot on our early days of marriage and business about how we were so different. Like, we're just so different. And now I'm like, it's so good that we're so different, because like his strengths are needed in this way to keep the business running, and my strengths are needed in this way to keep the business running. And I think that can be like a great asset. I feel like we have a lot of like moms in our community who like they're wanting to start the business, and sometimes there is a lot of support from husbands, sometimes there isn't. But I feel like sometimes it's fun to see like husbands like jumping in or playing a role, and like you just kind of find like what is their strength and what are they good at, and that's how you can bring them in. So I love that.
Yeah, I think, even if the girl is just starting out and he's not really even a believer in the product or the plan, I think my thing is just do a great job, and then proof is in the pudding. And as soon as he starts to see the income come in, he's going to be like, hey, what are you doing? Like, what's that? Tell me more. And as they're interested, I don't think you should just like tell them all of your heart and soul if they're not interested, because in my opinion, it's like falling on deaf ears. Wait until they're interested. Show them some date, like get them excited about something. Like they're like, oh, wow, you're making some sales over there. Yeah. You want to check it out? And then when they're interested, start unveiling to them like your big vision for where you want to go. And I think as it's in little doses, then the husband eventually starts to see like this could actually be something. And don't force it. Like, don't force it. To me, nobody ever, especially in a marriage relationship, wants to be forced into something. Like, I had to wait I wanted Jordan to leave his job many years ago, but I learned that this was not my place to force him into doing that. I had to wait for him to see like, oh, there's some really exciting projects ahead. Okay, like, I don't know. And he'd start to be like, oh, you're starting a podcast? Oh, you're starting it. And he'd start to really just start to get interested. Okay. And then, like I said, then let your husbands join in as they're interested, because then they're going to actually want to sign up for jobs. They're going to be like, can I do this? I could help with this, because they're going to start to do it out of their own heart instead of a forced nature.
Yeah. That's so good. I
cool.
love that. Show proof is in the pudding. Like show your spouse like what you're doing. I think that's so good.
Yeah.
Well, Mindy, if our listeners want to learn more about you or see gorgeous wedding dresses or what your staff is up to, what is the best way for our listeners to connect with you?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, if you have a special event coming up, you can follow Something New Boutique on Instagram or Facebook, anywhere. And it's just somethingnewboutique.com. But if you're interested in more leadership development or business ideas and things like that, follow Something New Resources. It's my other company that's all about the coaching. And then for fun, just to learn how to live a life worth celebrating, if you want like a mentor in your life about all things, parenting, friends, whatever, I have the Something New Show. And that's on YouTube and everywhere you can find a podcast.
Awesome. Very cool. Make sure you go check that out and follow and go see what Mindy is up to. So thank you so much, Mindy,
Thanks,
for your
Mindy.
time.
Yes. I loved it. I had a great time, and I hope you guys have a great, successful year with all these moms starting their businesses. That's awesome.
Yes. Thanks, Mindy.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rainmaker Family Show. Hey, if you are not a part of our Rainmaker Mastermind, we have a new opportunity for you to book a one-on-one strategy call with one of our Rainmaker coaches.
If you want to get a call with them, see if it's a good fit for you to work with us to build a business that allows you to have time freedom and financial freedom, you can get that call at makeitrainmama.com/podcast. That's makeitrainmama, MOMMA.com/podcast.